Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine you're at a fan convention, buzzing with excitement, ready to meet stars from a show you love, and then, just like that, something really unexpected, actually alarming, happens right there.
Yeah, not like a stunt for the show, but real life.
Exactly, not staged. It's the kind of thing that just, well, it shatters that whole fan experience bubble, doesn't it?
It really does. It completely shakes up what you think a fan con is supposed to be, A place for fun, connection, shared excitement, and suddenly it turns into something quite serious, quite unsettling.
Makes you think about those lines between the characters on screen and the actors in reality.
Absolutely. Today on DRM News Global, we're exploring a recent incident that certainly made headlines and stirred up a lot of conversation. We're talking about the alleged biting incident involving Martin Kove and Alicia Hannah Kim, both from Cobra Kai, at a fan convention.
Right. You've probably seen the basic story fly by, but what actually happened? Our mission today, here on the show, is to really distill the key details from the different reports. Go beyond just the headlines, give you a clear picture without, all the noise.
We want to map out the sequence of events, try to understand the different viewpoints, because there are different viewpoints, and then look at the bigger picture implications when something like this happens so publicly.
So for this exploration, what sources are we drawing on?
Well, we've looked carefully at quite a few. Our main insights are coming from the detailed police reports, the official ones from the Puyallup Police Department. They give a very step-by-step account of what happened right then and there.
Okay, the official record.
Exactly. And then we've cross-referenced that with reports from places like Variety, People, TMZ, Parade, reputable outlets that added more context and reported on statements or lack thereof. So combining those gives us a pretty rounded view.
Good. So let's set the scene then. Where did this all happen?
Okay, so the place was SummerCon. It's in Puyallup, Washington. And this went down on Sunday, June 22nd.
And the people involved, fans will definitely know them.
Oh, absolutely. Martin Kove, who's 78, famous, iconic, is John Kreese from Karate Kid all the way through Cobra Kai.
Sensei Kreese, yeah.
And Alicia Hannah Kim, she's 37. She joined Cobra Kai more recently, playing Kim Do-yoon in seasons 5 and 6. A pretty formidable character herself.
Right. So both were there doing the usual convention stuff, signing autographs, meeting fans.
Exactly. Just like you'd expect, participating in the event.
Okay, so how did the actual incident start, according to the reports?
According to Hannah Kim's account, as it's detailed in the police report, it started pretty normally. She went up to the cast booth where Kove was, tapped him on the shoulder, just, to say hello. A simple gesture.
Just a friendly greeting.
That was the intent, it seems. But what happened next was, well, not a casual interaction at all.
And this is where it gets really specific and, frankly, quite disturbing. The reports allege that right after she tapped him, Kove suddenly grabbed her arm and bit her upper arm so hard he nearly drew blood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, imagine that, just out of nowhere. The report says she yelled out in pain.
Understandably.
But it didn't end with the bite. This next part is particularly jarring. After biting her, the report states, based on her account, he then grabbed her arm again and began kissing it where he had bit her.
Kissing it. That adds a whole other layer, doesn't it?
It really does. It's this bizarre, unwanted intimacy right after a painful physical act.
Yeah, that detail really jumps out from the reports. The bite itself is shocking enough in that context, but the kissing afterwards, it just paints this picture of deep distress for Hannah Kim. It's so far removed from any kind of normal interaction, especially in a public professional setting like a convention.
You can only imagine the shock, the confusion. What did she do right after?
Well, the report says she immediately told her husband,
Yeah.
Sebastian Roche, who was right there with her. And they didn't just let it go. They decided together to go straight back and confront Kove about it. They wanted answers right then and there.
So they went back to talk to him. And how did that confrontation go? Because this is where the stories might diverge, right?
Exactly. This is where you really see the clash of narratives. According to the police report documentation, when they confronted Kove, his reaction wasn't exactly apologetic at first. He allegedly exploded on them.
Exploded?
Yeah, saying something like, how dare they confront him? So indignation, anger seemed to be the initial response.
Okay, so not remorse, but anger. Did he offer any explanation for the bite?
He did. He claimed he was just trying to be funny. That was his word. And he tried to put it in context by saying that they play fight all the time on the set of Cobra Kai.
Ah, the play fighting defense.
Right. He apparently said he did not think it was a big deal, sort of framing it like it was just, banter carrying over from the set, like maybe the lines blurred for him between acting and reality.
But Hannah Kim didn't see it as funny or playful at all.
No, definitely not. Her perspective was very clear. The report states she expressed how upset she was and told Kove directly that he had legitimately caused her pain.
That's a critical difference, isn't it? His intent might have been funny, but her experience was pain.
Precisely. It highlights that huge gap that can exist between intent and impact. What he might have meant as a joke landed as something painful and upsetting.
So, things were tense. What happened next? Did someone else get involved?
Yes. Given how tense it was, and the disagreement, Hannah Kim and her husband decided they needed someone impartial. They went and found an on-site law enforcement officer, one who was working the VIP area, and asked him to step in to help de-escalate things.
Smart move, bringing in an official presence.
It seems so. And the officer's observations recorded in the report are really significant here. They provide that objective viewpoint.
What did the officer observe?
The report confirms the officer looked at Hannah Kim's arm and saw a very noticeable bite mark that was already turning blue and bruising.
So actual physical evidence, not just a little mark.
No, quite visible. It backed up her claim of pain. The officer took pictures too, documenting it officially.
And did the officer speak to Kove?
Yes. When the officer questioned Kove, the report says Kove admitted to biting her.
He admitted it.
He admitted the act, yes. But he stuck to his reasoning, saying he did it out of jest, that he was just messing around. He also stated he did not mean for it to be perceived as illegal. So, admission of the action, but denial of harmful or illegal intent.
Okay, so he admits the bite, but says it was a joke, not illegal. How did the officer and Hannah Kim respond to that?
They were both very clear with him. The report states that both Hannah Kim and the officer told Kove directly that his actions were illegal and would not be tolerated in the future. A very firm warning.
No ambiguity there.
None. And interestingly, despite his initial reported anger, it seems the situation started to sink in. Some reports mention that Kove eventually realized that he messed up and apologized to Hannah Kim and her husband in front of the officer.
Ah, so an apology did come eventually.
It appears so. Perhaps the presence of the officer, the clear evidence, the warning about illegality, maybe all that brought home the seriousness of it. It shifted from just a disagreement to something with real consequences.
Right. So let's talk about those consequences. What happened officially? Did Hannah Kim press charges?
That's a key point. She ultimately decided not to press charges at that time.
Really? Given the bite mark and everything?
Yes, but her reason, according to the police report, was very practical. She stated she wished to have a report filed in case this continues. She specifically asked for an informational report, essentially creating an official record.
That seems important. Why is just filing a report valuable, even without charges?
Oh, it's incredibly valuable. For anyone listening, this is a really crucial takeaway. Filing an informational report creates an official paper trail. If, heaven forbid, something similar happens again, you now have documented history, a pattern. It's not just a one-off he said, she said.
Right, it establishes a record.
Exactly. And beyond that, it validates the person's experience. It's an official acknowledgement that something happened, that their account was recorded. That can be really important for feeling heard and for, a sense of justice, even if it doesn't go to court. So she and her husband signed affidavits, got a case number. It was logged.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And what about Kove? What were the immediate consequences for him?
The officer instructed him to leave the venue, straight up, and advised him strongly not to repeat that kind of behavior.
Was he asked for his side in writing?
He and his son, who was apparently with him then, were offered the chance to write a voluntary statement, but they declined. They did thank the officer, according to the report.
And did he just leave on his own then?
Well, the departure was apparently formalized. He was escorted out of SummerCon. And interestingly, this was reportedly done at the discretion of a Cobra Kai producer that was at the venue.
Wow, so someone from the show itself was involved in his removal.
Yes, which suggests the event organizers, and perhaps the show's own team, were taking this very seriously, prioritizing safety and managing the situation quickly.
And any immediate comment from Kove's side or Netflix?
Not immediately, no. Reports noted that reps for Kove and Netflix didn't respond right away to requests for comment from outlets like Variety and People, likely figuring out how to respond or choosing silence for the moment.
Okay, so that covers the incident itself and the immediate fallout. Let's maybe zoom out a bit now. This whole play fight defense Kove used, what does that tell us?
It's fascinating, isn't it? because that explanation, "we play fight on set," might hold some water in the highly controlled artificial environment of a film set.
Where everything's choreographed and consented to, presumably.
Precisely. On set, physical interactions, especially anything like a bite, would be discussed, planned, and maybe involve stunt coordinators.
Hmm.
There's a framework of consent, even if it's implicit in the job sometimes, but take that same action and drop it into a public fan convention.
And the whole context changes.
Completely. All those rules, that framework, it evaporates. What might be perceived by Kove as just continuing an on-set dynamic becomes, to the person on the receiving end, unexpected, non-consensual, and in this case, painful. It really forces us to look hard at consent. It's not just about the action itself, but the context, the relationship, and crucially, the receiver's experience.
Especially when it causes actual harm, like the bruising indicated, his intent becomes almost secondary to the impact, right?
Absolutely. The impact dictates the nature of the act in reality. And that follow-up, the kissing a bite mark, that adds another really uncomfortable layer to his just explanation.
Yeah, that part is still baffling. What does that suggest?
Well, it's hard to know the intent for sure, but it certainly doesn't read as a normal apology or acknowledgement of causing pain. It could be seen as dismissive, maybe even a strange way of asserting control after the initial act, or perhaps a very misguided attempt to smooth it over that just made it worse. Whatever the intent, the effect is deeply inappropriate and a further violation.
It also brings up power dynamics, doesn't it? Covey is the veteran, 78 years old, the iconic figure. Hannah Kim is 37, newer to the main cast.
Definitely. That age difference, the difference in tenure with the franchise, it creates an inherent power imbalance.
Yeah.
That can make it harder for the person in the less established position to immediately push back or feel safe challenging the behavior of a senior figure.
Yeah.
So it's also a reminder about the responsibility that comes with being a public figure, especially one with seniority. Their actions carry weight, even if they think they're being lighthearted.
And the convention removing him shows they recognize that responsibility too.
I think so. The swift action by the organizers and the producer shows they understood the need to maintain a safe environment for everyone, fans and other talent included. They have a duty of care at these events.
We touched on the importance of the informational report. Can we dig into that just a bit more? Why is that documentation step so critical, even if someone doesn't want to go through the whole legal process?
It really is critical.
Yeah.
Beyond creating that paper trail for potential future issues, which we mentioned, filing a report serves a really important psychological function for the person affected.
How so?
It's an official acknowledgement. It says, yes, something happened here, your experience is noted, it's recorded. In situations where someone might feel dismissed or unheard, having that official record can be incredibly empowering. It's validation. It separates the incident from just being a personal dispute and frames it as something authorities were aware of and documented.
And it preserves the option to act later, perhaps.
Exactly. Maybe someone isn't ready to press charges immediately, for many valid reasons, but having that initial report filed keeps the door open. It provides the foundational details if they decide later on, maybe after reflection or if other incidents come to light, that they do want to pursue legal action. The details are fresh, the evidence potentially noted, like the bite mark here.
And speaking of that bite mark, very noticeable, turning blue and bruising, that physical evidence reported by the officer really drives home that this wasn't minor, regardless of intent.
It absolutely does. It cuts through any ambiguity about whether harm occurred. The physical evidence speaks for itself about the impact, irrespective of whether Kove thought it was funny. It highlights that actions have real, tangible consequences and that personal boundaries were clearly physically violated.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this for everyone listening to DRM News Global. We've looked at an unexpected physical incident at a fan convention, the SummerCon event.
Right, involving two well-known actors from Cobra Kai.
We've seen the conflicting views, Kove claiming it was a joke, play fighting, while Hannah Kim experienced it as a painful, upsetting assault backed up by clear physical evidence seen by police.
And her crucial decision not to press charges right away, but instead to file that informational police report, creating an official record just in case. That's a really key point about agency and documentation.
And finally, the outcome. Kove being instructed to leave and then escorted out, showing that there were immediate consequences enforced by both law enforcement and event show representatives.
Yeah, this whole situation really throws a spotlight on that complex interplay between, public image, personal boundaries, and how things can go sideways even in places meant for fun, like conventions.
It really does. It makes you think about the lines between a character someone plays and the actual person, and how those lines can get blurred, sometimes with serious results.
It definitely leaves us with some things to consider, doesn't it?
Oh.
Like, what responsibility do public figures really carry for their actions? Especially when they seem to bring their on-screen world into off-screen interactions.
And maybe more broadly, how can all of us get better at respecting personal space and understanding consent in all our interactions, not just the ones that make headlines? And maybe just being more aware that our intentions don't always match the impact our actions have on other people. Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on DRM News Global.